started and just be respectful of everyone's time. So we'd like to welcome you. I'm Carol Rankin, the co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Edwardsville area, and my co-president, Joanne Naby, is on without her video. So I would like to welcome all of you here. And a little housekeeping. Becky asked that we make sure to mute our microphones if we're not asking a question. Okay. And as I've told the judges, the Edwardsville High School Marching Band is doing an exhibition for family and friends. So I will be leaving the meeting early to go watch my grandson. He's a senior, so this is his last big performance. Okay, and tonight we are continuing our interest in restorative justice. And we're very happy and fortunate to have Judge Romani and Judge Smith to talk about Veterans Court. Judge Romani was a judge of the Third Circuit Court, but is now retired. He was a Vietnam veteran, and when he helped found the Veterans Court in 2009, it was the first such court in the state of Illinois and only the third one in the country. Okay, Judge Smith is a lifelong resident of Madison County and is also a judge in the Third Judicial District. She is the highest ranking. Okay, I lost it now, Judge. I had it all walked out. The JAG.
Okay. Yeah, JAG officer, that works.
Okay, so as a colonel, is the highest ranking officer in the Illinois Army National Guard, and she has been deployed twice to Kosovo and to Afghanistan. So we're very pleased to have you with us and look forward to learning about the Veterans Court. So I will turn it over to whichever one of you wants to begin.
I think Judge Romani, you had mentioned we were going to have him start.
Yeah, I'm going to just give a brief introduction to Veterans Court, how and why it got started. When we started ours in 2009, I was asked by several people, why are you starting a Veterans Court? We have a drug court, we have a mental health court, which is true. The reason it was started was in Erie County, New York, city of Buffalo, there was a judge, Judge Robert Russell, who presided over drug courts, mental health courts, other alternative courts. He had a few veterans in each of those courts, and he noticed that they were sitting in the back of the courts, and they very seldom interacted with anyone else in the court. He asked his court administrator, who was Jack O'Connor. Jack is a Marine veteran of Vietnam, to go talk to veterans and ask them why they were not joining in. Jack already knew the answer. I talked to Jack. He told me that he already knew the answer, but he went to talk to the veterans and came back. And he told Judge Russell that the veterans did not feel like interacting with other people about their experiences when they thought those other people would not understand their experiences. And that is true. An experience for a combat veteran, unless you're another combat veteran, you really don't understand exactly what those experiences are. Veterans are more comfortable with other veterans and they will engage with other veterans. So Judge Russell came up with the idea, well, I will start a Veterans Court strictly for veterans. So in January of 2008, the first Veterans Court was started in Buffalo. He had a few veterans in that court. These were men and women who were coming back from the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. He understood that we were going to have many, many more of these veterans coming back. And his thinking was, let's be proactive, not reactive. Let's have a court set up so when all of these veterans start pouring in, we're ready to help them from day one. instead of having to try to come up with some solution. I contacted Judge Russell after I was asked by our Chief Judge, Ann Callis at the time, if I would like to start a court. We worked on it together, me, Judge Russell, and Jack O'Connor. And in March of 2009, we started our first court here, first session here in Madison County. As was stated, we were the third in the country at that time. According to the latest statistics that I could find, and it's from November of 2020, there are now 601, or at least at that time, there were 601 veterans courts in the country. So they are growing by leaps and bounds. We need them to, because we need to help these men and women. That is how the veterans courts got started. I'm going to turn this over to Judge Smith now for her to talk to you about the Madison County Veterans Court, how it's run, and the specifics about that court. When she is done, I will come back. I am the Veterans Mentor Coordinator for the court, and I will briefly explain the mentoring program that we have that helps these veterans. Judge Smith.
Thank you, Judge Romani, and thank you to the league for inviting me here again. I apologize for the casual attire, but we got some football championship this week, so it's really an honor. And I will say it is an honor to follow in the footsteps of Judge Romani, because throughout my entire legal career and honestly in my military career, truly being a part of the Veterans Court treatment program has just been a tremendous honor. And I have just seen the difference that it has made in the lives of these veterans and how we have truly changed, and I do believe saved veterans' lives through use of the court. And I kind of want to highlight something that Judge Romani said, that this is a treatment court. And I believe you had Judge Knapp on before to talk about the drug court, where these treatment courts are different than what other courts go. And I think that goes along with the lines of the restorative justice program, is these courts are to get to the root of the problem of why these individuals were involved with law enforcement. And just by way of background, I am a reservist. I've been in for 27 years. My husband's also a reservist. He just came back from his 4th deployment. And a lot of folks that we see in our treatment court, a lot of people don't understand that we're dealing with soldiers who, especially early on in the war, my husband spent almost 18 months in Iraq. You're dealing with a lot of reservists and a lot of active duty individuals. But for reservists in particular, they are going, and you're sending them to all this training. They are going into combat. A lot of them, they're early on seeing, years. It wasn't until I think 2015 where they shortened the combat tours to about 9 months, but well over a year in theater, in combat. And then during our demo process, when we are released from active duty, we get sent to about 3 to 5 days of out processing. And a majority of this out processing is you're literally sitting through PowerPoint presentations over and over, talking about your benefits, talking about this, making sure you got all your teeth, little things like that. And then after that, you're sent back to your community where you came from. A lot of these folks, especially in rural areas in Illinois, access to the VA, we're lucky since we've got, the VA just right across the river. But a lot of these folks in Southern Illinois, especially, don't have quick access to VA resources. And so what we were seeing, and I think this is why these veterans courts are so important, is especially younger soldiers, they're coming back dealing with all of the trauma and all of the things that they experienced in combat. And then they're just said, okay, you got 30 days leave. And then, by the way, you need to go back to your civilian jobs. You need to go back to your families. You need to go back and be a citizen, And so fast forward with that, soldiers weren't given the tools to cope with some of the trauma that they dealt with. And unfortunately, how we see that present itself and manifest itself is in drinking problems. They're dealing with their PTSD, with drugs, alcohol, a lot of unfortunate domestic issues, because when you come home, even myself as a wife, my husband just returned just in the summer here, and I thought I would be a much more sympathetic wife, but he's still in that military mindset. And so we've had our struggles of reintegration. So unfortunately, some of them are not able to deal with those stresses, and that's why law enforcement is involved, because they've got DUIs, because they turn to drugs, because they've got some domestic battery issues, those sorts of things. So it truly is this treatment program that we have, and I know I'm kind of biased, but our Veterans Court team is a phenomenal group of individuals who are solely committed to making a difference in these veterans' lives, because we understand that they made the ultimate sacrifice. And just because, or they committed to making the ultimate sacrifice, and just because they might have had some problems dealing with their experiences, it shouldn't, their entire rest of their lives should not be tarnished. So we've got individuals, we've got a representative from the VA, who Amy, who is our VSO, and she is like our key player, that she screens these individuals when they come into the program to make sure that they've got access to the benefits they need at the VA hospitals. And if they don't have the access, then she sets them up with different veterans places across the county, like maybe they need to get their discharge upgrade or something like that, so that they can have access to the VA. So she is a key player. She is our VSO. She comes to court every day. She comes to staffing every day. She is in communication along with our mentors, which Judge Romani will talk about later, with our veterans daily, and if not weekly, if not daily, and helping them connect to the resources they need. Counseling. She will help them with housing. We will help them with jobs, just making sure they've got the stability. We also have 2 probation officers that are assigned. They both have military experience, which I think is fantastic, because as Judge Romani said, it kind of makes things easier when you've got a combat veteran who's talking to another veteran who kind of understands what it's like to have served. And then we have the state's attorney's office and the public defender. And that's kind of our core team of individuals, in addition to Judge Romani, as far as our mentors go. And every week we meet on Wednesdays. We meet before that to have a staffing. And during the staffing, we go through kind of how our participants are doing. Did they make all their doctor's appointments? Are they having any struggles? Did anyone kind of self-report they're having triggers, or that they may have relapsed in their treatment program? If we, unfortunately, sanctioning individuals, it's not something we like to do, because I had mentioned this is a treatment court. But if we have to sanction individuals to try and get them back on the right path, on the right treatment program, we'll discuss what sort of sanctions there are. They can be anything from writing a paper to doing some community service time. And then, of course, in the worst case scenario, it would be some sort of incarceration, but only for a minimum period of time. So that's kind of how the program works. Depending on the types of, we either have a diversion program. And so for the diversion program, it means that once they are through the program, and if they successfully graduated, the charges will be completely dismissed and off their record. So it's as if it didn't happen. For the probationary program, the goal for that is so that way veterans do not see prison time. So if they complete the program, they may still have a conviction, but at least they did not have to see prison. We save them some money as far as the fees goes, probation costs, those sorts of things. And again, it's kind of an all-inclusive program where we're not just focusing only on what brought them there to court, or their addiction, but we're also focusing them on making sure they get the benefits that they deserve, whether it be education benefits, whether it be housing benefits, making sure they're connected with the right medical treatment providers, even outside of whatever the addiction or maybe PTSD goes. And it's kind of a whole of an individual approach to make sure that they're on track. So that's kind of the overview of the program. We could not be successful if it wasn't for our mentors. And it was a tremendous honor to have Judge Romani, who I know is very modest about his service, but just a tremendous veteran, a tremendous patriot, a hero in my eyes, to have him come back even after he retired to take charge of our mentor program. So Judge Romani, I kind of pass the torch back to you to talk about our mentor program.
Okay, thank you. The mentoring program was not a component of Veterans Courts when Veterans Courts were started in 2008. It was several years later, and again, it was Jack O'Connor, who works for the Buffalo Court, came up with the idea of having mentors for the veterans that are in those courts, in the Veterans Courts. I was asked to come back to be the mentor coordinator, which I couldn't refuse. I was glad to be back into the court, glad to get back with the veterans coming through that court, able to talk to them. As mentor coordinator, my job is to find mentors for our program. Now, mentors must be veterans with an honorable discharge. They have to fill out an application to come in as a mentor. We do a background check to make sure everything is all right. And I sit down and talk with them to see why they want to become mentors. If they really have the desire to be a mentor, excuse me. Once we decide that we want these people to be mentors, they take some training. Amy, that Judge Smith talked about, has training with them that lasts about 2 hours. It deals with suicide prevention and confidentiality. The other part of the training is given by myself and probation officer Mike Wilkinson. It is basically to outline the mentor program. He outlines the veteran court itself, if it's for veterans who have never really heard of the court, other than they had an idea we had a veterans court and they wanted to be part of it, but did not know how to operate it. Once that training is done, then I give to those mentors. With me, Mike Wilkinson, we look at the list of veterans, the ones who really need the mentors to start with, and I assign mentors to the individual veterans. We're talking about male and female. Male mentors get male veterans. Female mentors get female veterans. We are there basically for the morale of these veterans, to show them support. As I tell the mentors that are coming in, we're sort of a coach in a way. We're a cheerleader in certain ways. Our job is to keep these veterans as positive as possible throughout the process. In this process of the Veterans Court, these veterans are going to take a step backwards. That's just a reality. No one comes into these courts with the issues that these gentlemen and women have and go straight through the court without any problems. They're going to take a step back. And when they do, many of these veterans, because they still have a sense of military and a sense of chain of command, many of these veterans feel that they have let us down. They'll say, oh, I let you down. I let the court down. I let Judge Smith down. Our job is to let them know that, no, you didn't let us down. You have made a mistake. We got to get you back on course. So we just have a pep talk with them and get them back, at least their mind back to where, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Because we ask them, if you really want to be go through this program satisfactorily, you've got to want to do that. And if you want to do that, we will help you get through that. And that includes Judge Smith and the court team. She tells the veterans that when they come in, we are here to help you get through this program, no matter how difficult it may be. And we do that. Now, the mentors, we are not part of the court team. So what that means is when we have conversations with our veterans, our conversations with those veterans are confidential. We do not tell the court or the probation officer what we've talked about with our veterans. The only things that aren't confidential is if we're talking to them and we feel that they may be thinking about hurting themselves or others, those we report, because there's nothing confidential about that. We've got to get them help right away. Other than that, our conversations are confidential. The court meets every Wednesday. Not all veterans come on every Wednesday. It's spread out. So when a mentor has a veteran on the docket for that Wednesday, they come to court. I come to court every Wednesday because I'm the coordinator. But so you come to court. We do not participate in what's happening in court. And by that, I mean, we do not talk to the judge. We do not talk to the probation officers. We don't butt in as the judge is talking to our veteran. When our veteran is finished, then the mentor will walk out of the courtroom with that veteran and sit down, and then we talk to our veteran. And those talks may be brief, 10, 15 minutes. They may be lengthy. It depends on what the veteran wants to talk about. If he's doing well, if he or she is doing well in the program, the conversations are a little shorter. If they are struggling, the conversations get a little longer. On the off Wednesdays that they do not come, the mentor contacts his veteran or her veteran. We have their contact information, they have ours. So usually what it is a phone call. I will call my veterans the week that they're not in court. I will call them the following week, throughout the week, once or twice, just to see how they're doing. They do appreciate those calls. To them, it makes them feel like we really do care about them as a person. And I should say Judge Smith makes them feel the same way when she talks to them. They are very appreciative of Judge Smith. They feel that we're all there to help them. And they really appreciate the fact that we take time with them and show that we really are concerned and care about their well-being. I know some of my other mentors have had the same experience. I tell my veterans, you call me anytime you need to talk to me. You got my cell phone, you call me in the morning, you call me in the evening, you call me late at night. It doesn't make any difference. I've had telephone calls at midnight. I've had telephone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, which is great, because what the problem is, something is bothering them. And they need, and rather than react, take some drugs, take some alcohol, whatever their problem is, they just want to talk. And so get on the phone and say, talk. Now, I went through a boot camp, training camp, a mentor training camp, boot camp. And one of the biggest things that I got from that camp was, there was a lieutenant colonel, Marine colonel, who said, as a mentor, your job, your main job is to listen, not talk, listen to your veteran and talk when it's your time. He said, he made a statement that has been in my head ever since. He said, there's a reason God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen. And I tell my mentors when they come into the program, that's the best thing you can do. You don't want to cut a veteran off who is talking to you until they're done. I had a phone call from a veteran that lasted an hour. He talked for the first 45 minutes before it was my turn to say something. He just wanted to talk. And when he got it all off his chest, he told me, he said, I feel a lot better, Judge. Thank you. Went back to bed. That's why we're there. That's why the mentors are there, to help these young men and women when they're struggling, to keep them on track, to keep them positive, to keep them from going back to drugs and alcohol to solve their problems. They have someone else besides the court and their probation officers to talk to. And they really, really appreciate that. There's nothing better as a mentor to stand in court and watch one of your veterans graduate from that program. They really show their appreciation to the court team, to their mentor, about helping them through the program. I have a couple veterans who graduated who I still talk to occasionally. They'll call me, I'll call them just to say hi, how you doing? They appreciate the fact that we still care. We tell them when they leave, and Judge Smith tells them the same thing in court. Just because you're graduating doesn't mean that we're going to forget about you. We're here. If you're having a problem, you contact your probation officer, you contact your mentor, you contact the judge. We don't want to leave anyone behind. And the fact that they've graduated doesn't mean that their problems have gone away. They've just learned how to deal with those problems. And we're there to help them if they feel like the wheels are coming off. So the mentoring program has become a key component to the Veterans Court. And we have a good program here. We have a great judge, great team. And Veterans Courts are a great success. The last I heard, the recidivism rate, and that is how many people that have gone through a program come back or get charged with another offense. At one point, the latest I heard, the Madison County Veterans Court, we had a 92% success rate. That is phenomenal, because in most regular probation courts, if your success rate hits 50%, you're doing a pretty good job. In our court, it's been over 90%. Thank you.
Okay. Are there questions for the judges? I do have one, but I won't be able to hang around to hear the answer. I'll have to do it on the recording. So do you facilitate enrolling the veterans in treatment programs, like for drug treatment, alcoholism, that kind
Yeah.
of?
Judge Smith?
Yes, we absolutely do, Carol. So that's the great thing about our VSO. So she's a veteran service officer. So she is the one that connects the veterans. She works for the VA hospital and she comes to court every day. And so she's the one that says, okay, this program might not be working. If we've got them involved already in one program, let me talk to some of the healthcare providers and let's see if this program might be better. So, some soldiers might be dealing with PTSD. Some soldiers might be dealing with MIST, which is military sexual trauma. Some soldiers might be dealing with TBI. Some soldiers may not have a diagnosis of TBI or traumatic brain injury. So Amy is spot on. She is, I can't say enough great things about her. And one thing I do want to add, just how wonderful of a team that we have, is the Illinois Supreme Court sends a group for all specialty courts. They are monitored to make sure they meet certain standards. And I will say, this past year when we were monitored, we did get a report back that they had asked our court to be kind of a mentoring court for other courts in the state, just because we got such high remarks. And I really, that's definitely because of the team we have and because of the way it was set up by Judge Romani. So, but yeah, Carol, we do have, we set them up, whatever, if it's substance abuse, if it's PTSD, and they may have some other mental health issues. We also assist with them, getting them even into like primary care, just basic care.
Yes, Carol, just to add to that, through the VA, we have psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, counselors, and Amy, as Judge Smith said, sets the programs up with these people, gets them started. So all the services are there at either Jefferson Barracks or John Cochran, either one of those VA hospitals. The services are available.
Do you feel that you have all the support, whether it be financial or staffing or volunteers, that's necessary to help all the veterans who come to your court?
Well, Judge Romani, do you want to take that as far as a mentor perspective? I could give my thoughts, I think, and then I'll pass it to Judge Romani. My only wish is that we had more assistance with what's called HUD bash. So it's for housing. I think that's one area that we tend to be a little bit lacking on, is just assistance trying to get veterans who need housing. But that's also part of that lately is just because of COVID. It's kind of, I think everybody's been in a struggle. A lot of landlords, you're dealing with some of the issues with COVID. But I think as far as jobs and stuff like that goes, I think we've got a fantastic support group. I'll let Judge Romani talk about the mentors, but I do want to just say one thing. We have quilts of honor. So at our graduations for our combat veterans, there is a group, the local group here, who is fantastic and wonderful. It's called Quilts of Honor, and they actually it's a group of women who make quilts for combat veterans, and they've got a long patch that they add onto it, and it's a very moving ceremony. She comes, she wraps them in the quilt when they graduate, and I've seen more than one soldier tear up, including myself, during those ceremonies. So at their graduations, it's really awesome. So little things like that do help. But Judge Romani, if you want to talk about volunteers as far as the mentor.
Yeah, on the mentoring side, our mentoring aspect is not that old. It's been about 3 years, I guess now. So yeah, we need more support mentor wise. It's been difficult to get some veterans in there to be mentors. I talked to a lot of the VFWs trying to get some people to come in, and not very successfully. Idealistically, if you're a mentor, the standard is you have one veteran and maybe two, no more than three at one time. I've got 5 now. I've had as many as 7. Most of our mentors have 3. So we don't have enough mentors. It's better if we had more, so the ones that are mentors now didn't have so many veterans to talk to, but we are lacking in support for that particular program right now.
Do you have any need for people to provide rides to John Cochran or to Jeff Barracks for appointments?
I know Amy does a lot with that, setting up rides, but I think we do have 1 or 2 individuals, Judge Romani, and I can't think of their names off the top of their head, but that's sometimes been a need, or even possibly because some of them who may have DUI type cases, even possibly rides just to make sure they make their court appointments too. But that's definitely something I know I know Amy usually covers down on that and tries to find them.
That's good to know. What was her name again?
Amy, and her last name is completely.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
Sorry, I'm not watching this. I can't. Judge Romani, can you think of her last name at this point?
At the moment, no.
I know. Sorry about that.
Getting old. I can't. I don't know. Yeah, but no. I mean, it probably would be nice to have a list of local people who would be willing to do that. Yeah. Probably wouldn't be called upon all that much, but it would be nice to have in case something came up and we had to get someone to do that. I know our probation officers have provided rides to veterans down to the hospitals when they had to. So,
all right. Should I contact someone about that? Someone at the court?
Yes, I can actually give, I think it was Rebecca, I think, weren't you the one texting me with the Zoom information? Was that you?
Yes.
Or I
Yes.
can send that to you as soon as I can send you her information.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or you can contact me as well, but I can get you connected to either Amy or a probation officer. Absolutely. That would be fantastic.
All right.
Thank you.
I have a question. What do the veterans have to do to become part of the Veterans Court? Do they have to meet certain requirements?
Yes, they do. So there is a statute which kind of guides the Veterans Treatment Court program in the state of Illinois. So there's certain offenses. So there's a screening process. And of course, we need to check to make sure that they've got their DD 214, which is their discharge paperwork. They need to be eligible and meet certain thresholds. So some courts don't take non-combat veterans, but we take most all of veterans as long as they have either a general or an other than honorable. As long as they don't have a dishonorable discharge, we generally try and fit them into the court, just because it's my personal philosophy. I think that they still served even if it wasn't in combat, and you never know if there was possibly some sexual trauma, which might have those sorts of things. But then there's a series of type of crimes, which you can imagine, were usually involving a victim, that they are not eligible for that program. So if it's, an aggravated battery or, murder or something along those lines, DUI with a fatality, then they aren't by statute eligible for that program. But that's kind of how that works. What we're trying to do with our numbers are a little bit lower than normal. What we're trying to do is to get to some of these other dockets, because usually veterans aren't the first to say, oh, I'm a veteran. Oh, I'm a veteran, So we're trying to get some of the judges in just the basic traffic dockets, the DUI dockets, the misdemeanor dockets, to advertise the fact that we've got the Veterans Treatment Court program. Because the felony cases, those that are incarcerated or have come through the system, we've got a great handle on that. But just individuals that may just have a DUI or may have a minor misdemeanor charge, we're trying to get the awareness out there that this program is out there for them. So hopefully that.
So they have to
I think-
volunteer?
Just to add to that, in order, just simplistically, this is a criminal court. So that veteran has to have committed some crime. Number
Yes.
one, that's the only way they can get in. They have to commit some type of crime. And then all of these other factors then start. You ask if it was volunteer. They're not no one is forced into the Veterans Court. They have to ask, or their attorney asks for them to come in. No one is forced to come in, and no one is forced to stay. So it is up to the veteran. It's if the veteran wants to be there, they fit the requirement, they'll be there. If they don't want to be there, they are not forced to stay.
How many people do you generally have? How many veterans are going through your court on an average year?
Oh, goodness.
Just
Judge
ballpark figure, like.
So I'm trying to think. So generally on any Wednesday, a docket day. So the program can usually be, if they're a track 1, like a low risk, or track 2, it's anywhere between 12, 18 months, or sometimes, unfortunately, if they've got a little bit more problems, it's kind of 2 years. So on any given Wednesday, I would imagine we have between maybe 12 and 18 participants. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Judge Romani?
Yes. Yeah.
And then
I think our total is right now is a little over 40.
right. I think, right now about 40 in the program. But they kind of graduate at different levels throughout the year. But yeah, there's usually, we're hoping for a little bit higher numbers than that. But I think, like I mentioned, COVID's.
Have you ever had someone go through your whole program, graduate successfully, and come back and want to be a mentor?
Oh, yes. Yeah. We've had some of those make the best mentors. I'll let Judge Romani kind of talk about that.
Yes, I have counting myself, there are 8 mentors in the program. 4 of those mentors graduated from the program at some point in time. Now, the eligibility for that is sort of set by the national group. They say that veteran should have graduated over a year before you think about making them mentors. I agree with that. The reason with that is you want to make sure that that veteran has successfully got his problems taken care of, that he can cope with them. If you bring him back too soon and they start talking to the veterans that are going through the court, it may trigger a response in them that gets them back in trouble. So it's a good idea, and we've done that with ours when we brought. They have graduated, some of them for a couple years ago or so. I think we've got 2 that graduated about 13, 14 months ago.
And
They make
oftentimes
great, they make great.
I- they absolutely do. They sometimes make the best mentors because, you know, there are some veterans who are in the program that, you know, may have picked up, you know, a DUI and they don't have any problems whatsoever getting through the program. The ones in my experience that I've seen with the significant PTSD, significant, whether it be, you know, MST, military sexual trauma, or TBI, at some point there has to be, unfortunately, we're kind of the safety net for them. We catch them from hitting rock bottom, but sometimes they have to hit rock bottom for them to get on board with the program. And so having mentors who've kind of gone through the program, and a lot of these guys, it's funny because a lot of these guys might have fought the system a little bit harder at first, and then they fell in love and then they didn't want to leave the program. So we're like, hey, give it a year or so, come on back, and then you can be a mentor. It's nice to have those folks who are like, hey, look, I was where you were, you know, 5 years ago, and I did not like what they wanted me to do. I did not like facing my demons, because we compartmentalize everything. Veterans are told our mentality is suck it up and drive on. And you're taught that from the very beginning at basic. You suck it up, you drive on, you know, you don't show a sign of weakness. You never show that. Well, with the Veterans Treatment Court, we have to have them show their weakness. We have to have them come face to face with those demons that they're struggling with. And for a lot of veterans, that's very difficult to do, just because it's been ingrained in us for so long. Like, yeah, this is just the way life's supposed to be. We just got to suck it up and drive on. So it's nice having those mentors who, you know, it took them a while, but they came to grips with it and they understand and they can relate. And it just truly goes back to what Judge Romani said. It's veterans talking to other veterans because we understand, you know, what they've been through and we know where they're at, and it just makes a huge difference.
What is the criteria to graduate from the program?
So it depends on what your track you're on, but first and foremost, we want stability in their lives, because they will never, if they're dealing with substance abuse, and those triggers, instability in their life will always cause problems. So we want to make sure for those that are eligible and who aren't permanently disabled, we want them to have a job. We want them to have a home that they can go to, they can stay at. There's certain programs that we would have them complete. Of course, sobriety, we require an extended period. And again, this is kind of very fact dependent based on what track they're on, but a length of term of sobriety. We want them to make sure that they've got consistent appointments set up and kind of a follow-on plan for their treatment plan. So we want to make sure that they're at the end, before they're getting ready to graduate, that they haven't missed a bunch of doctor's appointments, or that they haven't missed a bunch of mental health appointments. So we want stability in their attendance, sobriety, and then just kind of completing all that we've asked them to do. And then they would be eligible for graduation. Am I missing anything, Judge Romani?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. That's about it. It just takes a while. As Judge Smith earlier said, I mean, 12 months is the earliest. Many of them are there for 18 months to 2 years. So it takes a while.
Is there anything else? I'm trying to look to see if there's any questions in the chat or anything. I don't see any.
No, I don't see any questions either.
How many other veterans
well,
courts
the
are there at
most
this
of the-
point?
In the state or in
The
I
state.
think Judge Romani, didn't you indicate there's over 600 in the nation?
In November of 2020, this came from the VA, because they were talking about their VSOs, how many courts they had gone to. At that point, it was 601. Now that's almost a year ago. So, but with COVID, they probably did not start very many others, but over 600.
Yeah.
Is
And
that
in
in
the
the state or the nation?
The nation.
Okay.
And as far as in the state goes, there was recent legislation, I can't remember what year, which requires every circuit, that's not a county. So in the third judicial circuit, we're Madison and Bond County, requiring every circuit to have a veterans treatment court. Unfortunately, especially with a lot of these rural counties, they just aren't set up to have the access like we do for the with VA. So I don't believe every circuit in the state has one yet, but I know a lot of them do. The good thing that we've been able to do, and I think Judge Romani was kind of instrumental in this when he started the program, is that for those counties, like I know we have a couple of veterans from Macoupin County who may also have charges here in Madison County, but they may be residents in Macoupin. We've been able to, since Macoupin doesn't have a veterans treatment court, we've been able to kind of absorb them. Of course, the state's attorney there still retains jurisdiction over the charges, but we've been able to kind of bring them into our court. That way they can have the access to. So we've done that for a couple of different counties here and there on a one-on-one basis. So it's been nice because we've been able to help other folks as well. And I truly mean it when I said earlier, I'm sure Judge Romani can attest to this too. Just the impact that I've seen in all of my legal career that this court has made. I mean, we've truly, I believe, saved the lives of a lot of soldiers. I mean, as I'm sure you're aware of the statistic, more veterans commit suicide than we have lost in, all the wars in OEF, OIF. So especially suicide is a big thing. And I would say a large number of the folks that we deal with at one point or time during the time that they're in the court have expressed, those sorts of thoughts. And I just know we've made a difference. And so it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it is. It is, because I think the stats are that 22 veterans a day commit suicide nationwide, which is not a good figure.
No. And it is hard for them. You're going from a military career and doing all these wonderful things. And, when you come back from a combat zone, little minor things that, that maybe our families might complain of, we're like, well, that's not really a big difference. And then when you pick up a charge as a veteran, you do feel like you've let everybody down. And you feel like, that I've talked to veterans in the court program and they're like, well, my military service doesn't matter because here I picked up a charge. And it's like, whoa. That's not the case. You are still part of that 1% that's served. So hold your head up high. We'll get through this. And that's kind of the attitude that we have with the court is, let's get you the help you need and put this in the rearview mirror for what you've done for our country.
Well, if there are no more further questions, we would like to thank both of you for attending. It was very informative. I don't think most people are really aware of these different courts exist. So is there any other questions from anyone?
I've actually got a question.
Oh,
Since we have such an interest in voter registration as a league, do your veterans register to vote? I mean, they've given service certainly to the max in other ways, but I wonder if, maybe a lot of them are probably young people. Are they registered to vote? Would something like a special voter registration event for them be helpful at any point or something like that?
That's a good question. That's not something, that's Judge Romani, I think that's a great question.
Great question. I wouldn't be able to answer that. How many are registered and how many aren't, because it's not something we normally ask them.
Right.
But that is a great question. That would be.
Keep that in mind, because that's something we do a lot of. We have, we go to events where we register people to vote, and doing something like that for the Veterans Court would certainly be in line with what we do and might be, a real legitimizing event for some of the veterans. If you'd like us to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll bring that back to our probation officers and talk to them, maybe get a graduation or something. We could.
I was wondering how many different people do you have on Wednesdays? I mean, like you have 2 groups of Wednesdays with different people, or 3, or how many different people do you see, say, within a month on Wednesdays?
Well, we try and keep, so as I mentioned, there's a low risk track and a high.
Yes.
And we try and keep them separate because of course.
Okay.
So the low risk track, as I mentioned, I think it's probably about between a dozen to 20 folks every Wednesday.
All right. So if we were to come 2 Wednesdays in a row, would we be offering this service to most of your folks?
Well, because some, depending on what phase they're in, they may not come but once a month.
Oh,
So
All right.
I'm trying to think of what, let me think on that and of how you can, you know, hit everybody. And maybe you just stand, you just have a little area outside.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, let me think on that, and I'll talk to our staff on how that would work to get most of them, because I know we see most of them within at least a month period. They don't go, usually any longer than that on their phases. So let me figure that out.
We have a question of how often do you have graduation? And let me switch back to another speaker here and then answer, please.
Is that Bob Frank? Is that who that was? His
Yeah.
voice sounds okay. So we have, it's not, it's usually, what would you say, Judge Romani, every 2 months? It kind of, whenever we do it, whenever eligible.
Yeah. And I think for the combat veterans graduation, we wait till we have, I couldn't put a number on it, but more than 1 or 2.
Right.
Because of the ladies with the quilts. So their graduations, yeah, but I'd say, yeah, probably every 2 months.
Yeah. That's something I can also, it's open. We can make that open. A graduation event is open to the public. So if you're interested in kind of seeing how we do those. It's not as big an event as Judge Knapp's drug court graduation. Those are pretty impressive. Those are, if you don't get a chance to go to one of those, it's amazing because she actually put up the pictures, the before and after pictures and the results, and it's just an amazing thing to see. I'm very proud of all of our treatment programs. I really am.
Well, if there are no further questions, then thank you for being with us tonight and enjoy your football game.
Oh,
Thank you for inviting us.
yes,
And,
thank you so much. You know of it, I'm going to make a plug for Judge Romani. If you know of any veterans, young or old, that is interested in being a mentor, please reach out to us. We will take it, and we'll get the name of Amy if people are interested, possibly assisting veterans for their appointments. And yes, go Tigers.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Great thing. Thank you.